Alright, today I'm going to be working on fitness model image right now. Currently have the raw image open for edit. So increase the exposure by plus 15, contrast by plus 6. Basically, I desaturated the light out of the original clip of the picture. So, bring the shadows down so that I don't have any problem with my darks area. So when I'm editing, I can clean out whatever's still visible and still maintain the contrast in the image. Now, over to the HSL adjustment layer. For the luminous category, I increase the reds a little bit for the brightness and decrease some of the oranges to kind of flatten out the color. Bring down some of the temperature color. And as you see here, the oranges and the reds, I only touched up a little bit in saturation so that the picture doesn't come out too dull. And the hue colors, I adjusted them a little bit to balance it out to a nice pure brown skin. Now, to open up the image. Okay, first thing I do is I duplicate my layer. Control J for shortcut, so you don't have to do it through here. And I'm going to just go over the image very closely zoomed in. With my patch tool, I am going to look for just the blemishes that are visible. Okay? You notice every time you use a patch tool, you try to drag down because the pixels rendering usually doesn't leave any kind of editing scar or type of rough patch when you go down. When you go sideways, it kind of like, most of the time it doesn't come out good. So you always just want to try to sample from the top and drag to the lower part of the skin, which is the closest repeating pattern of skin. Okay. Gonna fast forward through this part.
I got the drip sauce, gonna get picked off. Diamonds they pricey course, get to a check like a Nike boss. Hit up the strippy, gang stay with me, pull out then you better hit me. They tryna get me, man of the city, only thing signing is titties. I got the drip sauce, gonna get picked off. Diamonds they pricey course, get to a check like I'm Nike boss. Hit up the strippy, gang stay with me, pull out then you better hit me. They tryna get me, man of my city, only thing signing is titties. I'm cleaning in water with drip, had to go Gucci the wrist with hundreds that I flip. Told you we gon' be rich, cause if I don't do it I'm dead. Leave my mama fat, that probably went over your head. Cause most of y'all born in the bed, I grew up in the shed. All my pockets really dead, smoking dope cause I be fed, drinking to the head. Give me like 2 shots, just want a new watch, I ain't stopping till my crew hot.
Okay, now continue from where we were at already. I've done patch enough of the area already, taking out certain significant stuff that needs to be removed from the beginning. Not everything is important to remove from the beginning, so don't overdo it. Now I have my frequency separation 8-bit adjustment tool already set in this preset right here. Now it gives you one for just the texture and one for the colors. Okay, this is basically for the subtle colors and textures in skin, and this is just for the detail lining of the pictures. Create a layer, a blank layer in between. We're going to use that for color blending, as in to even out the skin, fill in some of the dark spots areas in the skin. We're going to re-smooth it over with some of the natural skin tone color to blend it. Now for the skin, we're going to go to the mixer brush tool, settings 10 wet, 100 load, 100 mix, 10 flow. Okay? I forgot to put the natural skin flattening to 10% as well. Now, this is basically only to flatten out the shadowed areas and the plain areas. Anything that has highlight showing into it, don't go over it. So we're just gonna brush over the regular plain spots, sides of the skin that have like the dark spots, but not over the highlights. This is considered a highlight zone. Right here is a highlight zone. Highlight zone. That little crease right there, highlight zone. So we're not gonna go over that. Just over the dark stuff. Anytime you want to see what your flow is looking like and if you're actually achieving any kind of progress, you just click off the editing layer. As you can see, the areas that have been flattened. Flattened means flattened of detail and light. So it enhances the detail a little bit when it gets flattened. And you get that nice porous texture in the skin. If you see the shadows areas starting to get a little bit lighter when you do it, then you only go over it very slightly. You don't go over it a lot, just slight. Because you don't want it to completely drain out all of the shadows that you have on the skin that you need for when you start doing your dodge and burn process. Okay? So I'm going around the highlight area, just not trying to touch it at all. Because that's the natural part of the picture that's going to have to remain the same. Because if you brush out the highlights, you're going to have to put them back in. You don't want the complete image to be looking too, dull and kind of fake, because you have to input shadows and highlights. So you want to only focus on the shadows parts when you're putting back anything. You don't want to be trying to put back highlights. Highlights are awful to try to adjust back, because then it'll start looking like how makeup can be, like a little overdue in one area and splotchy going down towards the neck, Take another little glimpse, zoom out, take a little glimpse, see the progress already we're making.
Don't stop.
Leave the inner highlights right here in this area, and right here and right here. We're gonna leave that area alone. We're not gonna flatten it. So we're gonna need these shadows right here to define the muscle tone.
He's watching me.
Okay. I always like to go over the knuckles with this, because the knuckles are usually very dark. Leave the rest of the fingers alone. Just go over the knuckles. Slight touch of this over here. Do this for the neck area as well. You can define the neck a lot better.
Yeah, he's watching me.
For the face, you're gonna have to zoom in and touch it just over the shadows a little bit. This highlight for the forehead, we're gonna leave. I'm just gonna take down this and flatten this part of it a little bit, just right here in the middle. Identifying what needs to be flattened is always usually hard, but usually right around the eye, just the bags. Natural darkness right here underneath the nose, leave it there. Just probably catch a little bit of the crease of the nose right here. Okay, this area here, and a little bit of that right there underneath the eye where there's a bag forming. Get a little bit of the outside highlights, but not this inside chin highlight. Leave that alone.
I haven't
that a little bigger so I can smooth out this wrist part right here. I'm gonna leave this highlight alone. See, I'm not clicking on it at all. Just showing you this area right here.
Hey, take this. I barely have any air.
Beautiful. That way you can see a little bit of the adjustment in the face. A little bit of it. Alright, now we're gonna go over this part of it. As a matter of fact, we're gonna save that for last. We're gonna 100% opacity and flow on your clone stamp. And this is where you actually really get those lines out.
Yummy right here.
Those
Oh, they left the game.
bad discontinue of skin. Try to like soften it down with that pattern. I don't know if you see that like little bridge where the lining of the nose is right here. Kind of like give that continuation right there. And this is what you'll actually really remove all your blemishings with. The visible stuff. Gotta really use your eyesight on this stuff. Blend them edges in with the natural layer of the skin. Cool. Let's see, get some of these patchy areas. You don't want to swipe brush, you just want to sample and tap. Sample and tap. No sliding across the skin because then you kind of lose the detail and the little pores. So I'm just clicking, click, 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 click. I'm not brushing over, but I'm clicking very fast and sampling and dropping. Sample, drop, sample, drop, sample, drop. See how fast I'm clicking right now. You'll be like, okay, I get it. I'm not swiping. Sometimes this happens, just move back a step, that's all. Till it come off. Happens sometimes when you go too fast. Check a little bit bigger. See our progress so far. Okay, I think it's time to start lightly brushing. This is where we're gonna actually sample and try to fix some of the discolorations in the skin. 100% opacity, 2% full. Okay, we're gonna sample from this little light tear right here, and we're gonna just swipe. This one we're gonna actually hold down and brush it in a little bit. I would say about like 3 to 4 brushes in that side, like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. You get it, right? Let's see. I'm trying to get really close. Right here, we're gonna blend. It's still at 4%. We're gonna blend all of those tones the most we can. Firstly, I lightly brushed in that normal color that's nearing to it. Now, I'm going to actually try to fill everything with a little stronger brush stroke at once. Get really close, go over the linings, get some of those lines back, just so we move those brush blurs off the edges. Okay. Getting all these brush blurs off the edges of the model. It's too easy to do this editing and get carried away knowing that everything creates like a little distance of that it gets on everything. When you try to use your brush, it kind of goes everywhere when you're not using the complete hardness. So you want it to just go over the little dark areas with it. Just the lining. And remove those brush blurs from off of the edge. Okay. Now you can see, it's kind of subtled out all of that skin tone. We made it real flat. And I'm gonna go over this and bring back that highlight now. Reduce that a little bit. Leave the rest of the image. Come back over that little highlight we had there. Okay, and this is how the complete image has been adjusted. Alright, so we're gonna go back over that one lining right there underneath the butt cheek. Can you see it? There we go. And within everything, we're still going to bring it down to 80% opacity of that full editing layer, right? Because we never want to put on too much. 80%. Let's take off some of that fill. And bring the fill to 90. That way we get some of that natural tone back onto it. Okay? Now, we're going to do a consolidation. We're going to consolidate all the layers into one and put it on top. So that's Command, Option, Shift, and the letter E. Okay.
I'll start it when I get back. I'll be right back.
Now we're gonna create some highlights. So I would say bump it up about that bright. And one for the darkness. So let's just bring down the shadows. And I like to add a little bit of curved darkness in it. See that? Not only just bringing down the light, just a little curved darkness.
How are you?
And then Command I for invert to invert it so that we can actually fill in that. Let's just name our layers. This one's light for the highlights and darks for the shadows. Opacity brush 4%. I mean 100%, 4% flow. We're going to one swipe over the highlight areas. Let's do a two swipe.
It would be better for me if you go.
Hello.
I'm gonna do like a drastic highlight boost, and then I'm gonna minimize it with a blur.
Hello. What do you spin for me? This squad spin.
Alright, that's like kind of like a three brush then. A little butt cheek highlight. I don't like it. Just take away.
Are you recording?
Yeah, a little bit of the highlights into the hand, that little tailbone of the hand. Yeah, knowing what to highlight is very difficult. Not every image you're going to be able to highlight all of these features, but that's why in the post raw edit, I always bring down the light so that when I'm actually implementing back a little highlights, they look a lot better. It's the only reason why, so that when I put in my own edits, they're subtle and neat. They look real. Let's go with that little dark side a little bit. Add a little highlight right here. And then the tail of the nose. You always have to have that. It's my very sneaky highlight where I get really small. Alright? Just gonna get in that. Yeah. Get in that. These little highlight areas by the nose, the lining of the lip. This one. A little bit of the curve in the lip, just a little bit. That little middle split. Or anything that you want to still see from afar, you add a little highlights on it. Dimple in the neck, and add a little bit of highlight in it, just the curve of the jaw, a little hook. Small brush strokes. Alright, that should be alright for the highlights right now. Alright, now it's time to go into our darks. This is the fun part. Drop this one to 2%. This is this is like drawing right here. This part. Ah, nice. Yeah. We're gonna make this image look complete. Put some in the crack right here. I'm gonna increase it back to about maybe 5 for the out tour count. Thank you. Yes.
I always spoke to my head and my knees. I needed to put that in here. That's why I need to be careful. Yeah, Dad.
Can't tell me you a girl inside you a fuck a bag of waist, girl. National, we no wife but a years, girl. Boy, mama man style, we no chase, girl. National, we no wife but a years, girl. Man a star, yo, and every girl fit me. Jenna, mother of people, girl fit me. Girl thief, take a girl swiftly. Anyway, me come me have the gang with me. One girl, they must see matter, must see 150. Me say me nah make the girl trip me. Oh God, when you say she ain't your sweetheart, mount a man out the road, a mind man pitney. Fresh, breezy, I saw me stay clean. Girl, them love my foot in my straight jeans. Me full of sauce like baby. No, underage over 18. Cologne make a girl a daydream. The way she love the fuck, she put it on daydream. Anyway, the national step a beating. Girl around me, don't me say me they a beijing. Some man a hype with a bag of waist, girl. Jenna, we no wife but a years, girl. Boy, more for you, so we them a face, girl. Jenna, we no wife but a years, girl. Man a star, so we fuck star, girl. Whole bicycle pull up and carry, girl. Star, so we fuck star, girl. Are we responsive, all, girl? As a the thing said, Jenna sin thing. Bima just land, start up a engine. Drive gone for your pretty slim thing. 3 hours straight when me drinking ginseng. Every man in a the crew fresh beer bling bling. Homestead Signam go via the kingpin. Spain town everything load, everything brim. Some asa try don't be a victim. Fresh breezy as some stay clean. Girl them love my foot in a me straight jeans. Me full of sauce like baby. No underage over 18. Cologne make a girl a daydream. The way she love the fuck she put it on daydream. Anyway the national step a beating. Girl around me don't me say me they a beijing. Some man a hype with a bag of waist, girl. Jenna, we no wife but a years, girl. Boy, more for you, so we them a face, girl. Jenna, we no wife but a years, girl. Man a star, so we fuck star, girl. Whole bicycle pull up and carry, girl. Star, so we fuck star, girl. Are we responsive? Girl, tell me you a girl inside you a fuck a bag of waist, girl. National, we no wife but a years, girl. Boy, mama man style, we no chase, girl. National, we no wife but a years, girl. Man a star, yo, and every girl fit me. Jenna, mother of people, girl fit me. Girl thief, take a girl swiftly. Anyway, me come me have the gang with me. One girl, you must see matter, must see 150. Me say me nah make the girl trip me. Oh God, when you say she ain't your sweetheart, mount a man out the road, a mind man pitney. Fresh, breezy, as some me stay clean. Girl, them love my foot in a me straight jeans. Me full of sauce like baby. No, underage over 18. Cologne make a girl a daydream. The way she love the fuck, she put it on daydream. Anyway, the national step a beating. Girl around me don't me say me they a beijing.
Kind of zoom in for you so you can see that. You go to like 18, 19. Let's see, whatever it stops on. Let's say 19. Right? For the shadows, bring it down some to 13. See how they look by the forehead? You can see a little bit. Just making them nice and soft. And that same thing we're gonna do with. You could usually just paste on the same filter process. Look at them in the face. See how they look softer? Just gonna reduce it a little bit to like 9. So visibly see what's going on.
Right.
Can you see them by the neck? It's softer, but they're still there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to double that. But for the double, I'm gonna bring that double all the way down to 60%. Then I'm gonna increase back to about 93, 91. Increase that one back. See? Subtle, more sharp. I'm just gonna move that down to 50.
Get me.
Cool.
Gotta bring it in the garbage.
So add this layer right here.
I will do it in the garbage.
Actually, move that layer. Gonna merge everything down. So you see the before and after. There. Basically, I'm going to create this layer right here, and we're going to go over current and below with a light flow of 3%. Make sure the hardness is soft. On the clone stamp, and we're going to kind of smoothen out these layers, but to the eye, so we're not going to zoom all the way in this time. Yeah, just going to smooth it down some.
Don't open it yet. I want to see. I might two snipers in an RPG.
Mommy.
Can I get the RPG? Can I get the minis?
Gotta like line up this whole forehead. I don't like it. Let's put it back.
I'm going to Fatal and then I'm going to drop him off this med kit if he survives. Oh, there's a guy on me.
Just making these shadows a little bit more subtle.
There's a guy on me.
Blending
Guy
in.
on me. Guy on me.
Yeah. Let's see what we got here. See? Fix this up a little bit more. Take this, and now I'm gonna mask out some of the overkill, which is right here.
If you get this Oreo, you come get it. And when you get my gift, my mom got a gift.
Interesting read.
Yeah? Hey.
He's supposed to boil.
Hey, not gonna beat me. Let's just slime it.
Mask out some of the overkill on the edit.
That's why you make a mess. Eat my pot?
Okay.
No.
Mix some do stuff. I didn't think that in. I would have hopeful sign. Rangate, Ratgate.
What?
Just
I know. They shot something up in the air.
We almost got caught by the
Can we rush over to him? To save him. Come on, please.
Coke 3 white, I think.
can't notice it, but it's just a little bit.
Also,
Look
Just gonna merge these layers.
Go, 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 go.
Acting out. Acting out.
About the young lawyer who
Acting out.
suicide, but his family felt it was foul play.
Now I'm gonna double this up, sharpen it later. I like to do this, an unsharpened mask, make sure it's at 100,
Why is he still shooting at me, man?
radius 2, threshold 2. Alright, it's just a sharpening layer. See how it gives the detail back to the chair and the person and the model, right? Alright, now that same layer, I'm gonna high pass layer it. Only enough to get the sharpness, so there's no glowing edges over here, like no glowing edges. So about 1.3 regular overlay,
Go right here, right here, right here.
raw detail.
Gosh,
Like that.
how is he not dead? Look, shoot at him. He's one tap.
And now I'm gonna add a little dodge and burn layer over all of this.
Look, he's right there. Shoot at him.
Okay, gotta create my own, right? Blank layer, fill, 50% gray. Soft layer it.
Go get my card. He doesn't know you're dead.
Highlight sponge, 10% for highlight. I'm just gonna kind of like
What was the point?
some one swipers. Alright,
Yo, don't you see his nose?
and for the burn, shadows, bring it down to 10 as well. I always like to mask and bring some of the detail back from whatever I did too much of. Alright, just kind of like bring down, get that nice golden tone. Love you too, baby.
Daddy, Minnie was talking here.
And royal tone everything. Give some of it to the chair, even it out. Alright. Just kind of like just brings down everything, makes everything subtle. Now for my ultimate tool, I'm gonna select the reds, and we're gonna balance out. Top layer highlights. Now for the blues, bring them down. Give it that kind of oaky look.
No, 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 no,
But the judge ruled to keep the injunction against her in place.
Stop it! Stop.
Green Fund will
soft light. To look at the wrist.
So from today, how long will it take to be decided by the
Five, four,
And then
3,
we're gonna find her color.
6, 9, 3,
Let's see what's her color. Color tone. Try more of a dark girls are usually good with like an orange tone. Yeah, there we go. We're getting there. Right there. I guess we're gonna go with a soft light again.
Hello. People are sleeping. Hello. 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 Hello.
Hmm.
Hello. Hello. Open the door.
Yeah, see how the darkness kind of hides those lightly hairs right there.
My whole body.
Right here, go back into the camera
Stepping in
raw
spot with
settings.
gang, gang, chain hang on us on the same thing, same gang. Never will I lane change. Good girl, trust about the gang, gang. By the ball, belly with Henny, I need it all. Just heard of my father, I'm about to ball. Gotta run it up, stack it and flip it on my cause they need it all. Stepping in spot with gang, gang, chain hang on us on the same thing, same gang. Never will I lane change. Good girl, trust about the gang, gang. By the ball, belly with Henny, I need it all. Just heard of my father, I'm about to ball. Gotta run it up, stack it and flip it on my cause they need it all. Get to the cheese like nachos, smoking weed over the border like tacos. All the eyes call me Diablo, devil of beef, I'm the legend of sorrow. Get to the money and spend it today, cause I don't know about tomorrow. New whip, new wrist, new chick, came a long way from borrow. All of the problems I had in the past, still think about it tomorrow. Woke up in socks and I spent me some racks, diamonds glisten no tomorrow. Step in the spot with a 10-pack, half a strippers and half of the bottles. I love the baddies that come natural, hate the makeup look stiff like a statue. If I don't like you, I'm never gon' dap you. Pull on location, won't at you. Drip like a buster, they staring at tattoos, looking like Boogie is statue. She wanna slide me off into the bathroom, leaving with her, I'ma laugh through. Get to the money, don't gotta flex every day. Funky, I'm coming in casual. Smelling like cash, gas suit. They say they get money, gas you. Couple of cars ran through. You say that you tough, but they ran you. You capping, I don't understand you. I can't count up all the bitches I ran through. My pockets is fat like a camel. Point them out, one of my youngins gon' blame them. Dripped in my section with gang gang. Don't slip for a section that's bang bang. I'm standing on couches, my chain hang. Gang members on the same thing. Promoters, they love me, my name ring. I know I'm the goat, I'm the game change. Popping bottles in cases, blue faces. Hit them up, clean them up, you can't trace this. Bullets gon' pick them up, it's a facelift. Leveled up, need exotic, no basic. It's mirrors and face this. Fat try to draw up a cake, probably trace this. Smoking that people, I'm dead. They laced it, caught me a sip with my bread. Faced it, heard he got food for the chef. Chased it, I'm tryna put you to bed. Dangerous. Step in the spot, I'm with gang gang. Chain hang, all us on the same thing, same gang. Never will I lane change. Good girl, turned up by the gang gang. By the ball, belly with Henny, I need it all. Just heard I'm a father, I'm about to ball. Gotta run it up, stack it and flip it on my cause they need it all. Step in the spot and with gang, chain hang. All us on the same thing, same gang. Never will I lane change. Good girl, turned up by the gang. By the ball, belly with Henny, I need it all. Just heard I'm a father, I'm about to ball. Gotta run it up, stack it and flip it on my cause they need it all.
Super tight.
Yay!